Wouldn't it be great if an astrologer worked tirelessly for 2 straight days to bring you an astrological forecast for the first 2 weeks of August? Well, if you find that astrologer, please let me know. But for real, here is the astrological forecast from August 3rd to August 14th, 2020. The day starts off with the fast-paced moon in the 5th house in Aquarius. It's involved in a Thor's hammer with the Venus North Node conjunction, squaring the market ascendant at the open of the trading day. Seeing the moon as the planet in sesquiquadrate, we should look closely at her location. The moon is in the 5th house, which has to do with gambling, and in the case of the markets, this means further speculation from investors. The moon rules the public and healers. We know that the biotech sector has been in the mix big time since COVID-19 crawled its way into mass awareness. So with Aquarius and the moon in the 5th house in sesquiquadrate to Venus North Node conjunctions, then it's reasonable to assume that the planet Venus, which represents cures, will bring good luck coming from that North Node to these sectors despite the tension of the sesquiquadrate or the tension of the square. Venus's conjunction to the North Node is just too good for me to label bad, especially with the full moon happening during the trading day, and both the sun and the moon in a T-square to the focal planet, which is Uranus. Uranus co-rules Aquarius, and I expect there to be lots of energy in the markets and the tension itself to be a driving force for growth. And remember, the moon rules silver. Mercury is opposing Saturn just after the market closes, and it is a bit concerning as it could bring some limitations, along with some tough news for the oil sectors and the construction labor front, maybe news of a more record/crazy unemployment, or something to this type of effect. Ceres starts the trading day parallel to the moon and to Saturn. This creates the desire for exchange, and in the realm of the 5th, this could be an investment exchange. But the investor is probably wondering what type of stability these investments will bring, and maybe thinking long term due to the effect of the Ceres parallels. Uranus is in conjunct the ascendant at the close of trade and could be shaking things up around closing time, or it could be using its magnetism to draw others in. The sun is in semi-square to the Venus North Node conjunction, and this could be causing people to gamble on things like medical research, seeing the leisure industry is kind of dead at the moment. Vesta is opposing Saturn within a degree at the close of trade on this day. And this may begin to require investors to look for a more balanced approach to investing, despite wanting to focus in on the next big thing. Moving on to August 4th, 2020. Let's talk midpoint, shall we? At the opening of trade on the 4th, the North Node is on the Sun-Uranus midpoint. I don't know about you, but with the Sun in Leo at this time, all I can see is Teddy KGB splashing his chips all over the technology sector.
That's it. All.
I'm thinking by now this North Node in Gemini just wants to throw off the mask and hit the mall for the new iPhone 12. But anyone really Uranian may be ready to defy the 5G train and grab a few Kyocera cadences and go play some Sega Genesis instead. Screw convention, right? Plus Uranus himself is on the Moon-Mercury midpoint to start the trading day. And he's going to attract some advisors to the more beautiful things in life while he continues to transit Taurus. If Uranus were to comment at this time, he might say something like, "Find me a new way to eat delicious food without worrying about coronavirus." Yeah, let's not go too deep here because we have other things happening on the 4th. Like Mars is squaring Jupiter at the open of trading on this day. And Mars rules police and the army. With all that's been happening, it's reasonable to assume that political leaders, represented by Jupiter, may be giving orders to police or military, represented by Mars, that's not received well. There's obviously discord and conflict between the two, but they are both sure to influence each other around this time. And its effect could be temporary setbacks in the market due to accidents, calamities, storms, or natural disasters. Anything that affects the country's natural resources at this time could see declines. We should watch out for this. Leaders in education may be making rash decisions, and this too could affect an already damaged economy when parents are finding out more and more that their child's school will be delayed and there will be issues and delays with their own work due to the need to adjust to the child's presence at home rather than in the institution. Pluto is trine the market ascendant, but how much can this overcome a very close Mars-Jupiter square? This remains to be seen. All I know is that civil unrest, police and military activity, political theater, and the domestic front could have real effects on the economy at this time. The end of the day looks a bit more promising than the beginning, with the moon in trine to the North Node and to Venus. With Mercury sextile the midheaven, we're looking a bit better than we were in the morning when we were dealing with the exact Mars-Jupiter square. With the North Node exactly at the midpoint of the Sun and Uranus, I get the feeling that there is still the favor of the North Node shining upon governmental and institutional authorities and the groups and organizations which they are a part. Vesta's opposition strengthens at the end of the day on the 4th, and with Ceres contra parallel to Mercury at the close of trade, as well with Mercury in the final degree of Cancer, there is a heightened sense of wanting to do something to take care of oneself at this time, to continue to balance out the investment portfolio, and to put money into something that reflects one's feelings, but also that can help to heal others and themselves. And here we are, August 5th, 2020. With the midheaven at the close of market switching to Libra, we could be seeing a shift in market direction as the week deepens. And the afternoons in particular may have a different aura about them. We finish off this day with Mercury in sextile, which is a harmonious aspect to the midheaven. And despite some tense points elsewhere, this might help us close out the day on a more positive note. And on August 7th, 2020, to start the trading day, Uranus is conjunct the pot of fortune, which could be a fortunate thing. Mars is ruling the 8th house where Uranus resides in Taurus, and the action-oriented nature of Mars might incline the market toward easy gains or earthquake-like turbulence represented by the 8th house. The truth is there's a good and a bad side to everything. With this conjunction to the pot of fortune, I would look for the good. The ascendant is square to the midheaven at the start of this day, and this means that the path the markets want to take may be at odds with the outcome we'd like the markets to manifest. This is just a case of needing to reconcile the one with the other. Virgo likes to try things out and test out theories, but requires patience and seeks to develop a perfect way of accomplishing a task. The Gemini midheaven is a bit at odds with this, as the Aries side of Mercury can be seen, and it's much more about rejecting facts that don't fit personal opinions and being objective merely when it suits you. There is a bit of impatience to the Geminian aspirations, and the time needed to test things out through trial and error may be getting in the way. Think Big Pharma. With Uranus semi-square to the midheaven and sesquiquadrate the ascendant to open things up, the people once again are needing to conform to the environment. And during this COVID-19 ridiculousness, there may be criticism coming from labor unions, teachers unions, and the like as to the way things in the environment are unfolding. Fear-driven propaganda may have these groups wanting to avoid returning to a sense of normalcy and driving markets through a bit of a rough patch. The Uranus conjunction to the part of fortune, one would hope, could still lessen the effects of these more tension-filled events. The amount of tension-filled aspects tells me we may be in for a bit of a tough morning on the 7th, but with the moon opposing the market midheaven at the close of trade and Saturn in conjunct the North Node, one would think this may be a tough end to the week. With Uranus at the Venus-Neptune midpoint to close out the day, expect the shock waves to be felt in the pharma sector. August 10th, 2020. The ascendant and the midheaven are still not budging. They're still in square to start the week here. With Mercury squaring Uranus just before the market opens, there's a bit of anxiousness to the environment surrounding the stock market at this time. Stability is in question, and ideas flood the market faster than they can be assessed. Intellectuals look to get a hold of the many different directions from which the government seems to be attacking the coronavirus, offering funding to many different tech and pharma companies. Just think of Kodak. Why? Questions may be being asked by people that these companies don't want or cannot answer. The moon semi-square Neptune and the sun semi-square Venus makes the two planets that deal with drugs and cures and pharmaceuticals at small odds with the luminaries. The rift between them may not be overwhelming, but it's there. Saturn is in conjunct the midheaven at the start of the day and may put some restraints on the market at this time. The sun is in conjunct Jupiter at the end of the day, and we may get some clarity through crises. Issues with our speculations in the market may bring us some insight as to what is really going on with our public officials. Saturn's in conjunction to the North Node is still no fun, and again we may be seeing commodities take the hit. Oil, gas, vegetables. Pluto sits on the midpoint of Jupiter-Saturn and urges us to regenerate our faith in the markets, to face our fears in relation to the social, political, and economic climate. And its effect on the markets is designed to awaken this transformation through this midpoint occupation. The crises that are happening will make investors question their faith in all of these arenas, in order that they may deepen their faith and use a practical approach guided by a trust in something larger than themselves. If too many institutions and corporations are not worthy of that trust, then investors may need to begin to put their money elsewhere. Some may panic or miss the point here, and they'll just have to repeat this lesson. And then on August 11th, 2020, there are some important things happening right here on this date, starting with the Yod, an aspect configuration which calls for adjustment and regeneration. The Sun is the focal planet of this configuration because it is in conjunct both Jupiter and Neptune, which are sextile to one another. To add more energy to this aspect pattern, Jupiter is 1 minute from exactly 19 Capricorn, a critical degree in the zodiac. The configuration will be in effect for a few days while the Sun transits this position at about 1 degree a day. But to break it down, at the beginning of trading, the Sun lies in the 11th house, which represents political groups, large social groups, and in this case, corporations, especially ones that fly under the altruistic umbrella like pharmaceutical and tech companies. Don't forget about charitable organizations, teachers' unions, and labor groups. These will be areas needing correction. With the Sun in Leo, the way in which this correction will take place will be to use one's instincts to decide which corrections need to be made, which groups need to be completely dismantled, or which groups need to be completely uplifted. There needs to be much more room for people with heart and compassion to fill managerial roles rather than just pure intellectuals that have their own shady agendas. Political leaders, represented by Jupiter, and Big Pharma, represented by Neptune, are all at the forefront of this correction due to their involvement in this aspect pattern, as they both are putting pressure on the Sun moving through Leo at this time. The ascendant and the midheaven at market open are at both 29 degrees of their respective signs, which is Virgo and Gemini. The end of the signs could definitely signal a rush to buy or sell, and investors may get the sense that we are nearing the end of one phase and are at the beginning of another. Mars is nearing closer to its exact square with Pluto, and we see the power of the mass population at odds with the police and military complex. And this conflict grows even more in intensity at this time, having effects politically and socially, and without a doubt economically, and I can't imagine that they are all going to be good. Although the elites do profit off of war, so it may just be unprofitable for the average people and small business owners. We will be seeing much more of this as Mars square to Pluto isn't exact until the open of trading on August 12th. And Mars goes retrograde and squares Pluto 2 more times after this, culminating with a final square to Pluto around Christmas time, December 23rd, 2020, which may be the worst of the 3, being so close to the solstice. Then on August 12th, 2020, to kick things off on the 12th, we have the ascendant and midheaven in exact square still. They're still at the 29th degree. The moon is trine to the late degree ascendant, adding a bit of positivity into the air of the trading day. The fluctuations may be a bit more favorable on the 12th because of this aspect. Although Mars square to Pluto will be felt most on this day, and let's just hope all the police and military and all the protesting doesn't have too negative an effect for for those of you just looking to get through these times without watching your investments plummet. The truth is that this is one of those things where you should be paying attention to the news. Not because it's going to fill your head with truths, but because you can get a sense of what propaganda is being pushed and what you may do in response to it. If the markets are being manipulated with this military rioting fear porn, then it's good to know what stage of the political drama we are in right now. Use whatever info you can to make the best investment decisions possible at this time. Realize that as people feel more unsafe or threatened, then the markets usually respond by going down as a result. People are less likely to trust their money to the markets or to corporations when they feel like their nation and their states are crumbling. The yield is still in effect, and with the sun in exact and conjunct to one of the 3 planets, expect the corrections to be heavy in the pharmaceutical sector at this time, along with investments in alcohol, gas, petroleum. At the close of the day, the ascendant is at the 17th degree of Sagittarius and square to the Mars in the New York Stock Exchange chart. To go along with the Mars and Pluto square here, I think we could expect a little extra action and maybe a bit more impulsiveness or even volatile movements on this day. Chiron is opposed to the midheaven at the end of trading as well, and that just adds to the theme of corrections. And all the problem solving that will be taking place at this time, it's not going away in the early part of this month. But the grand trine between the Sun, Ascendant, and Mars at the end of the day could calm the effects of all this, and even find a way to turn a negative into a positive. It at least allows all this tension to have an outlet for positive expression. So as investors, you just have to use your knowledge to make the best decisions, because there will be profits out there somewhere amidst the more negative corrections happening. Vesta also slips its way into Leo by this date and brings with it a laser focus toward much more speculation. And on August 13th, 2020, both the Ascendant and Midheaven change signs to start the day on the 13th. The Ascendant shifts to 0 Libra and the Midheaven shifts to 0 Cancer. At first glance, we might think Cancer, Midheaven, is the time to rein it in a bit. Maybe put some money in our pocket, build our savings for a moment, net ourselves some security. We look closer and we see the moon is in Gemini to start the day, and that it is a parallel aspect to Vesta in Leo. Leo likes to gamble and is inclined toward a more aesthetic output. Either way, I'd say the focus at the start of trading is a more liberal consumption driving investment in these arenas at this time, with those who are trying to find a more traditional outlet feeling overwhelmed by the utter lack of some traditional investment options. There's always 2 sides to every coin, and those who are not part of the mainstream agenda may be critical, coming from the 10th house, of this type of societal pollution at this time. It may try to affect the markets in their own way. With the energy shift, I'd say more people are going to be trying to protect their family, represented by Cancer on the midheaven. And they're going to be protecting them from this unbalanced world, represented by that Libra ascendant. This may mean choosing not to invest in toxic, rootless corporations at this time. At the end of the day, on the 13th, we still have that grand trine I mentioned in effect between the Sun, Ascendant, and Mars. And boy, is that welcome with all the stuff we've been dealing with and I've been detailing in this forecast at this time. To have a little extra positive energy helps things out a lot. And like a good recipe, it balances the salty flavors that we've been getting with a little bit of the sweet. Mercury is on the North Node midheaven midpoint at the close of trade and could bring some good news to the forefront at the end of day. And finally, August 14th, 2020, Mercury is at the Venus ascendant midpoint to get things going here. And finally, we may have some people seeking a little harmony and balance. Agreements between opponents or political parties and the like could see people spending money on the finer things in life today. Listen, after all that's been happening, you can't blame people if they're starved for a little pleasure and a pleasing aesthetic coming from Libra on the ascendant. Consumerism could pick up a tick and be a good thing for the markets at this time. There's 2 yods in effect on this day. One where the Sun and Moon are sextile, both in conjunct Pluto, which is the focal planet. With Pluto being in Capricorn, which rules banking, I just wonder if portions of the stimulus are made available around this time, or if we will be seeing the effects of some newly printed money or approved financial aid for unemployment. Maybe that is what drives the consumption I was discussing, which could definitely make sense. Remember, the house where the focal planet is where the corrections of the Yod are going to take place, and Pluto is in the 4th house. Personal savings, home and family, things like that. And the way in which this correction takes place seems to be the bank putting money or agreeing to put more money in people's pockets. Not that this type of money printing is a good thing, but when you destroy people's businesses with flu fear, giving them more of an decreasingly valuable currency seems to be the elite's way of making it up to you. We live in a clown world.
Yeah, when I win, are you gonna pay me back with my own fucking money?
The other Yod is to Mercury and Leo and should have the news, driving investors to spend, and they just may do it on oil, gas, and definitely pharmaceuticals because, God forbid, we don't spend billions on creating a vaccine. That's probably already created. And we actually just built our immune systems for a change. Maybe they should spend billions to remove the chemicals from our food. You know, the 6,000 plus they've added since World War II. That might be a good idea. It should be noted that there is a kite formation, which represents eventfulness coming into effect at the close of trade between the ascendant Mars, the North Node, and the Sun. And that this planetary combination is most likely to express all of their great energy through the North Node, which is sextile to both Mars and the Sun, and it's opposing the Ascendant. This type of energy and flow and creation of the Grand Trine mixing with the opposition to the North Node in the 7th house has me feeling like the agreement on stimulus or some sort of other political matters could be in the works. Maybe even agreements with local police forces undergoing reform due to Mars's involvement in the Grand Trine, and other such authority figures which are represented by the Sun in Leo. Overall, with the possible news driving consumerism, the multiple Yods, and the kite formation coming in at the close of this week, we are in for some crazy times for the first half of August, and if you aren't careful, you could be investing in the wrong direction. I want you to think of the Yod as a fork in the road, and when we experience them, then it's time to choose a direction. And yet we have no clue where either direction might take us. We must use our instincts, coming from the Sun in Leo, to guide us at this time. Guys, if you like this video, please click the like button, share, comment, let me know what you think. If you have any other topics you want me to cover, been a little slow here, had a lot of work to do, but I'm trying to get these things up for you, so please show me that you like it and, do your thing. Also, look forward to my next video, which will be coming out in a couple weeks, where I will detail the second half of August, and we'll get into that. And don't worry, I'm still going to get the gold and stuff coming up here soon. That's been a little delayed, but I will do my best to get that up for you at the beginning of August. Thanks.